Jeremy, how are you?
I'm doing good, Connor. Thank you.
Part two after that little technical difficulty.
The people didn't need to know that.
Yeah, that's fine. We started we had a good 10-minute high quality conversation going, and then my computer decided to crash, so here we are restarting, but it's fine.
That's all right. We just go with the flow.
Yeah. So let's just pick up from where we started. You are currently a city councilman in the city of Newark. You served on the school board and you ran for mayor recently. So I guess let's start with what got you into politics.
I think what first got me involved was I consider him a mentor even today is Mayor Frank Stair. He was the mayor when I was in high school, and so probably around your age is when I first got involved with community service. And he had a youth council at that time, and he took students from Newark High School and Newark Catholic High School, and we met at City Hall and met with him, and we were able to provide feedback to him directly to the mayor of our city. And one of the topics that came up often was, there's very little activities for teenagers to gather, to have fun in the city. And he took that to heart, took our input to heart, and he created the youth council, the youth center over at Everett Park, and that was something that directly came out of the youth council, was the creation of the Everett Youth Center. And that was something I saw as a sort of a tangible way to provide input, and then from that input a building was established for youth and teenagers to hang out, and that was a result of having that youth council. So that's something that really sort of put that fire in my belly and wanting to be involved with community service and wanting to give back to the community. And something I didn't mention earlier, but another aspect of his leadership was he did have officers assigned to neighborhoods. And I grew up in the south end of Newark, and our officer at the time, our neighborhood policing officer, his name was Sonny Vellinger, and we would have community picnics and neighborhood cleanups and just sort of giving back to the neighborhood, wanting to help others. And that was another result of Frank Stair's leadership as mayor.
So do you feel like the attitude in Newark has shifted from a communal sense to more of a self-preservation sense?
I think that the people in Newark still have, they're good people. I mean, they're great people. I mean, I think our city is, we're growing. We're over 50,000 people that live in our community. And I think that when there's a shared goal, a shared vision, that people come together and want to help one another. Now, how that results is going to be different. I believe that something that we were offering through my campaign as mayor was to be a facilitator or a convener of social service agencies, of nonprofits. Let's get all these different leaders in a room in order to take the viewpoint as a consumer. How can these agencies better improve their services, or not even have to duplicate their services, but to mainstream their services to make sure that that addict, when they're ready to get off of the drugs that they've been using, how can we get them into an avenue of care? How can we get them into housing? How can we get them into, sort of treatment, either be a detox program or a 9-month program or a year-long program? I believe that the mayor can take that authority within that office and convene agencies in a manner which would improve services. The current mayor has never done that. He's been in office for 8 years, and I don't see him doing that in the next 4 years. So unfortunately, I don't see us making much progress unless the agencies themselves take it upon themselves to do that. So that's going to be something hard.
So would you be open to looking into the idea of safe injection sites to help combat the drug crisis that's currently going on in Newark?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Safe injection sites.
Oh, mm-hmm. Yeah, I came out in favor of the needle exchange program. Anything we do with harm reduction, most definitely in favor of that. I mean, when we look at making decisions around harm naloxone or providing needles, the syringe exchanges, most definitely we need to look at the science that's there. I mean, there has been proof that there is data that shows that people get help. I mean, our goal should be to save someone's life. Now, when they decide to get off their addiction, we want to have those treatments and avenues of care available to them. But until they get to that point, we need to keep them alive. And if we can cut down on the amount of hepatitis that is spreading in our community, or HIV or other diseases, then I'm all in favor of it. And I just want to make a shout out to Trish Perry. She's a local organizer here in our community, and for several years she's been an advocate. Her son Billy has been battling the disease of drug addiction for a long time, and she and several others, every Saturday with the Newark Homeless Outreach, they provide help to people, and they develop those trust and those relationships with the people that are homeless so that they can properly. You're not hearing me?
Oh, no, I was just saying, can you lift your microphone off of your collar? Because when, like, it rustles, it creates a little scratching.
I'll lean this way. But yeah, just a huge shout out to Trish Perry for being a leader in our city and a volunteer. I mean, she's not being paid for what she's doing. She's doing this out of love, and she's most definitely been an advocate for this. The interesting thing about Licking County is that the Board of Health has to give their blessing on any type of needle exchange program that happens in our community. And our Board of Health, the Licking County Board of Health, which is an appointed board, not an elected board, but an appointed board. So the Mayor of Newark has appointees, the Mayor Heath has appointees, Township trustees have appointees. They are the only board in the whole state that has banned needle exchanges in our community. And so it's a complete step backwards. I mean, the health commissioner himself was in favor of it. And, but the board took a vote, and they voted unanimously to ban needle exchange programs in Licking County. And that's, I think that was a completely wrong decision for them to make.
So what I feel like is my biggest concern with these, with the drug trade, is that these products are cut with fentanyl, which is one of the main reasons why they are deadly, because in the essence, heroin, for example, which has a huge stigma against it, because you have celebrities like Kurt Cobain, Jimi Hendrix that will use it, and then you have hardcore junkies that are on street corners using them. Heroin, in its pure essence, isn't as terrible for you as people think. Like, things such as cigarettes, which give you, it's a well-known fact that they give you lung cancer. Alcohol, which you can die from drinking too much of. You can get alcohol poisoning. You can pass out. You can, obviously, drunk driving, die in a crash. All these things that inhibit your ability to fully function all of the capacities of your brain. Heroin is not as bad in its pure essence as it's made out to be. It is the fact that it's made and cut with fentanyl and has other synthetic products in there that make it so dangerous. For example, in America, there's this program for drugs where you can do I believe it's called a cross ban or a sweep ban, where basically the law says that any product that is heroin or anything chemically close to heroin gets banned immediately. But in China, where a majority of these drugs are produced, specifically heroin and synthetic chemical drugs, they have to take the drugs one at a time. So they ban pure heroin, then they adjust the recipe a little bit. Then they ban that type, so they adjust the recipe a little bit, so they're always one step ahead of the game. These are still banned in the US, but they're legal to be made in China because they haven't been specifically targeted yet. And these products all have fentanyl in them now. And when they come to America, they're the things that are killing our civilians. So what I personally believe is that if we tax, regulate, and have legitimate companies produce the drugs, you are way more likely to have safe product use. And the prices will be better. Cartels go out of business because it's cheaper, it's safer, and these safe injection sites all regulate the amount that people take in, and I just can't comprehend why we are not doing that right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that I can't sit here tonight and say that I have as much knowledge about heroin and all the things that you just described, but I would just look at more of the sort of the process, even with, just even using marijuana. Ohio is just a state where you can get marijuana on a prescription, and so we're not even at the full point at where we can have recreational marijuana and we can tax it and use it for those types of purposes. So I would say before the general population is going to take a lot of education, even just getting marijuana so that we can have marijuana fully legalized. So once you add on heroin, I still think people, I mean, you got to think about it. We've had, 50 years of the war on drugs.
Yeah.
So people have been told for 50 years of hire more police officers, throw the minorities into jail. Let's all drugs are bad. They're bad. They're bad. So this has been preached into people's minds for 5 decades since Nixon. And so the war on drugs has manipulated people to be thinking, oh, wow, well, wait a minute, all drugs are bad. And so I think the biggest hurdle may not necessarily be the science, as what I heard you talking about, but it may be to the point of just
the
people
stigma.
are becoming, there's stereotypes associated with it, there's stigma associated with it, and that's probably a bigger concern than anything at this point.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
Because even the drug user, I mean, there's still stigma associated with mental health. So people that are using street drugs to take care of their bipolar, their depression, their schizophrenia, they're going to heroin, they're going to other street drugs. And so because there's stigma associated with, hey, I have this mental health issue. If you break your arm, you're going to go to the hospital, no problem. But if you have a mental health issue, why don't people go and get treatment for that? Because they feel like people are going to be judging them. They feel like people are going to be talking about them for whatever negative reasons. And so we have to get to the point of where, because I do believe that the drug addiction and mental health issues, I believe there is some correlation. It's not a fully 100% correlation, but I do feel like there's some correlation there, just from personal experience of having drug addicts in my family.
so that's why you said you would use the office of mayor to kind of be the middleman and coordinator between different nonprofit organizations to help organize these things. Obviously not, I don't think as far as safe injection sites, but definitely rehab and community outreach to those who need it.
Most definitely. I mean, even now, I mean, that election now is in the past, and we weren't successful with the mayor's run. But as an advocate, being on city council, I most definitely want to be as supportive to the community as I can. I mean, we have marginalized community throughout Licking County, and so we want to be able to advocate for them. And if we need state laws changed, we want to be able to advocate at the state house. We have a new state representative, Mark Frazier, who I think will be, I served with him on city council, and I think he does have an open mind. He went down and volunteered a few Saturdays with me down to the North Homeless Outreach on their Saturday morning services. So even though he is a Republican, I think that he has an open mind as to wanting to understand the trials and tribulations that people are going through. So I think that we would be able to have an open door discussion with him in his office.
Well, I feel like also it's necessary to point out that these drugs we've mentioned are already legal at recreational levels for privileged, white, richer, upper-class people. It's one of the reasons why I'm so against stop and frisk, because it so disproportionately affects minority communities, and you are way more likely to be thrown in jail by an officer doing stop and frisk on you for a little baggie of weed than a Wall Street executive with a dime bag of coke in his pocket. Purely because officers think, wow, that guy has power, he's white, he's in a business suit, I'm not going to mess with that, he has connections. But some guy who's probably listening, I hate to use a stereotype here, but in the Bronx, listening to rap music and just going about their day, enjoying their culture of their city, is way more likely going to be thrown in jail by a white cop because of stop and frisk and all these other programs, because the law only applies to those who are most vulnerable to it, and to those who have the power to step above it and pay their way out of it. The law just simply doesn't apply to them anymore.
I think you're right. I mean, I think there are some, especially in Newark, where the minority population is very low. I mean, it's less than 5% total. And so I think we have a situation where there is more of an economic difference, the rich versus the poor, the west side of town versus the east side of town, that type of thing, more than anything. I will say for Newark, though, that we have our police chief has started to do, it's called the NARI program. So anyone that does have drug paraphernalia or small doses of, whatever their drug of choice may be, they can go to the police station and say, I'm ready to change my life. I'm ready to make a difference and get into treatment. And so I will say that, our police department in Newark, we don't have stop and frisk on the books, which I think you're probably thinking of New York City when you're saying that term.
Yeah.
So we don't have that in Newark, Ohio. But I would like to see our officers be more compassionate towards, all the people. Citizens, but I think that we've made a good start with the NARI program, so that when people do want to give up their paraphernalia and other, drug accessories, whatever it is, that they can go and get into a treatment instead of just being thrown in jail. So.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned...
But I agree with you. I mean, I do think that the class warfare does exist. And it's not just with stop and frisk, but that's just a general blanket comment across the community, is that we have more... We don't necessarily... I mean, racism does exist. Sexism does exist. But I think classism is more visible in Newark and Lincoln County than anything.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned stop and frisk because today Michael Bloomberg announced that he's joining the 2020 national primary. And dear Lord, I despise that man. Well, he famously was a Republican and was a very, very conservative guy. Then he was a moderate and independent, and now he's a Democrat. And I can't stand the fact that he, as an entitled billionaire, thinks he has the right to rule the world, where he banned, I think they're called big chugs or something like that, big gulps. He banned, I think big gulps, that's what it's called. Right. He banned big gulps in New York, which I think should piss off every American, because that's freedom of choice right there. And he also is strongly in favor of stop and frisk. So I don't understand why. I mean, it's good for me personally, him joining the race, because people like Bernie, Yang, and Warren, Tulsi, the progressives on the side of the party, Bloomberg just rips away support from the Bidens, the Petes, the Kamalas, and paves a way for the progressives to come and take the nomination. So I welcome Bloomberg into the race, but dear God, he cannot get the nomination.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that with him, everything you just said, I don't know if his entrance into the presidential race really does pull away from the others, because I think people do view him as very out of touch. I mean, just because what does he have in common with the normal American? I mean, you have lots of wealth. You were mayor of New York City, but that doesn't really translate to...
That's the same thing I could say for Joe Biden, though.
Well, and I don't support Joe Biden either. I mean, I think his generation has passed, and I think his time for running for the presidency also has passed. So, that's even him continuing on. I mean, I think I'll just say it. I think it's selfish, in my opinion. I mean, I think he had his opportunity. I think he ran for president a few times, and he's served as vice president. He should be proud of the work he did in that role.
I just want to see that man go sit down on a beach and just relax, for God's sakes. It's so sad to see him just up on that debate stage, just clearly mentally losing it. And so clearly just watching his brain go downhill from the pressure on everyone, and everyone sticking up his past. Like, everyone could have been like, oh, Uncle Joe, that's a good guy. Oh, Uncle Joe, yeah, he was Obama's vice president. Good guy, that one. But now that he's running for president, and he's just said some of the most stupid things, like, make sure the kids hear words. And, God, he said...
Well, I wouldn't even talk about the domestic violence, and we got to keep punching at it. And all that.
I forgot
so he has his gaffes. So, but but I don't think we need to. This is the thing that I would like to say is, like, there's any elected official. I mean, they're choosing to serve their community in whatever capacity. If they're a United States senator, or if they're a local city council person, and so we need to encourage people to get involved. I mean, here we are sitting in the Democratic Party office, and finding candidates and encouraging people to run for public office is a challenge. And so anyone that wants to give to their community through elected office, there is going to be the criticism that comes along with it, but we need to be supportive of people wanting to get involved with wanting to run as candidates, because it's hard. It's very hard. So I don't want to get into a trashing Joe Biden thing, but I understand where you're going with that. So
yeah. What other candidates are you looking at in the 2020 field?
I most definitely, just because I am a gay man, I drove up to South Bend, Indiana when Mayor Pete made his official announcement. I feel like his entrance into the into the race is historic. To be able to have a legitimate gay presidential candidate was something that I drove by South Bend to see him give that announcement, and I didn't even get in the building. I was outside, so but just to be there, I think there's just some histories being made with him being a part of this race. And he doesn't have Washington experience, so to say. He's not a senator, he's not a congressman, but his experience comes from being at the local level, and I relate to that as well, being a local elected official as well. So right now I'm supporting Mayor Pete.
Is that Jeremy Blake teasing he's going to make a presidential run?
What? No, Jeremy Blake is just... I didn't hear you.
I said, is that Jeremy Blake teasing he's going to make a presidential run?
Oh, no. We got a lot of work to do here in Newark.
See, what I hear a lot of people say is that obviously I love how you're sitting here being very supportive of all the candidates, and then I'm just sitting here trashing on all of them. What I hear a lot of people say is that he's an outsider, therefore he must be good, but that same thing was said about Trump. And personally, I think he reps the status quo. He doesn't want anything to fundamentally change. I think he has this fake politician Obama impersonation that he likes to do whenever he speaks, instead of speaking from the heart and speaking from the soul like other candidates do. I feel like he's just so scripted, and every word he says is so poll tested that none of it's genuine. A lot of his
everything you just said is what they said about Hillary as well. So
yeah, and I believe that about Hillary.
Yeah.
What sucks is Bernie won every county in West Virginia, but the state went to Hillary somehow.
Mm-hmm. I think ultimately, though, what you're really talking about is how a campaign for the presidency is run these days versus it was in the past. I mean, it's very much a television personality is what many of these candidates are becoming.
I mean, I feel like there's two different types of what people look for. I think there's a false narrative right now that the Democratic Party wants a 1990s Bill Clinton neoliberal to run, such as Pete Buttigieg, like with it all buttoned down and professional, and I represent the status quo. I am a professional, so I won't say anything negative. But I feel like what's actually happening is we're living in an age of the more anti-establishment you are, the more against the system you are, the more better of a chance you have. And I think the best example of that is Bernie Sanders. You have this old, scraggly Jewish man with a really thick Brooklyn accent who speaks like his cheeks are super fat. And he's second place right now in the RCP national polling, and that's fantastic. And I feel like people are looking more to the ideas that you represent as opposed to the personality that goes along with it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that plays to a generational divide, because we were talking about in our meeting on Thursday, I forget what it was, but at the seminar they said the younger generation is looking at policy over personality. And I feel like the older generation is looking at personality over policy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, there's most definitely a point at where people are looking for results, and people are looking for something to be accomplished that's going to affect their life. And the whole Medicare for all and the healthcare debate is something that Bernie has. He wrote the damn bill. He's done that. So I think that's resonating well with different segments of the population. And I can see why people support him. I mean, they're looking for they're not looking for this transitional type change that's going to take years and years. They're like, okay, in my lifetime, I want to not have to worry about my health care. In my lifetime, I want to be able to, if I get sick or if my children get sick or if anyone in my family gets sick, we just want to go to a doctor and get care. That's the point. There's frustration out there. And then especially, I think the other piece of this is the whole economic message of wages have not increased in decades. Mm-hmm. And so people are working 2 jobs and they're working, more hours, but they're not being given higher wages. And so I think that's the other piece of Bernie's message is the healthcare piece, and then also better wages for people. So, and it goes with AOC and everybody. I mean, the whole Green New Deal. So
currently there are 2 main policies out to fix those issues, to fix the economic disparity, and to help along with wages matching economic growth and prices, as well as accounting for inflation. The two main systems that I see in place, well, ideas that are being ran on right now are, and as you know, I support Andrew Yang for the presidency. He supports Universal Basic Income, or UBI, and Bernie and AOC and the Green New Deal represent the federal jobs guarantee as well as a $15 minimum wage. So do you have a preference between those two?
Right now, I'd probably go with the Green New Deal, particularly because here locally we have an expert within Fadl Kaboub. He's an economics professor at Dennis University, and he actually just gave a talk on the Green New Deal and how to shift this idea of looking at federal debt and looking at that it's really not as huge of a concern as people make it to be. And being able to fund jobs. I mean, if someone is unemployed, give them a job. Don't give them another check so that they can just sit around. Give them a job. Provide them with employment. I think that that whole idea is something that I would favor at this point.
I would love to see like a not like CNN or any major news outlet, something like The Hill or a new media outlet like Kyle Kulinski, David Pakman, Majority Report, any of these new news media outlets host a one-on-one debate between Bernie Sanders and Andrew Yang, between UBI or FJG and $15 minimum wage. I think that would be extremely interesting to see because they both know their stuff. And I've heard so many arguments for and against the federal jobs guarantee and $15 minimum wage, and so many arguments for and against the universal basic income that honestly, I think that they are equal in terms of what they would achieve because they are fixing the same problem. They just have completely different means of doing so. I just personally think that UBI is more effective because it passed the House of Representatives twice in 1970. I can't remember, under Nixon, passed the House of Representatives twice. Over 100 tenured professors at high Ivy League colleges signed off on saying this would be great for our country. Martin Luther King championed it. Thomas Paine was fighting for it. There's already universal basic income in Alaska from $1,000 to $2,000 a month in oil money that's provided to its citizens, and it's done wonders. And the best example I can think for people who don't exactly know what it looks like near them, or in examples for what a universal basic income would do, is disability benefits and what are they called? When you get back from serving in the military, if you get injured, you get welfare checks. Like for example, I have this friend whose uncle got physically disabled in the National Guard, so she gets $1,600 every month in federal aid. And I feel like that's the closest example if you could have to what UBI would do for a community of people. And another common argument is that prices would raise because people have more money, but that means companies are just creating blind trusts. And Elizabeth Warren, there you go, you have a job, you can go break up companies like you're always screaming you want to do.
Well, even with the Green New Deal, you have to watch inflation as well. So that's the. When I listen to Professor Kaboub talk about the Green New Deal, I mean, it's at a point at where you're not concerned. I mean, you're not as the federal debt is not the triggering point. I mean, America is a sovereign nation. We can create our own dollars, and it's at a point at where you just have to watch the inflation, and there's measures with the Reserve Bank and other things to take care of inflation, which I imagine would be the same as UBI. So I'm just not as educated with UBI as you are, but I imagine it'd be the same measurements.
Also, speaking on national debt, what I don't think a lot of people don't understand is that a lot of national debt is debt that we owe to ourselves. It's just in trading between different government agencies. So like the CIA asks for $500,000 from the Parks Department, and then since they can't write the congressional budget, they're not allowed to pay that back. So therefore, $500,000 gets added to our national debt, but we owe it to ourselves. And I heard someone explain it to me as it was a form of when America was founding to basically say we could implode ourselves at any minute. So it made countries steer clear of us, so they didn't want to take us over because we could implode our economy at any moment. Well, like threaten to, even though we couldn't. That's the way. I'm not sure if that's truly the case or not, but that's how I've heard it explained to me. Is majority of the debt is in trading between the different departments.
I'm sure there's transfers of government dollars are a part of that figure, but it's just a matter of just borrowing. I mean, who we're borrowing money from, and as long as our credit is good, then we're able to pay back. I mean, that's more of the significance and the large dollar amount related to it.
Well, what I feel like really annoys me about no president has done this before, and it's such a brilliant idea, is that all it takes is an executive order, and what the bill would effectively be all products used in government building and anything that the congressional budget deems as government spending in infrastructure or building has to be made in America. All the raw resources and materials, so like steel for buildings, concrete, wood, logging, all of those have to be manufactured and produced in America to help American businesses, as opposed to importing from different countries like China, India, England, France, Belgium, all these countries. All of it has to be made in America, and it helps stimulate the economy, but instead we buy cheaper products from abroad instead of helping our own economy.
I guess I'd push back a little bit, because I don't think that the whole made in America becoming all of our products need to be purchased within our own country is necessarily the avenue to go. I mean, I do believe that we should have some type of negotiated imports and exports and trade with other countries, and that's how we have a world economy.
Oh no, I'm not saying total trade isolation.
Yeah, so there's, the whole, gross domestic product is based off of consumer spending. It's based off government spending. It's based off of net exports. And so there's, and then, the final piece is just the amount of new investment that's going on that makes up GDP. So I can understand the whole idea, and Trump most definitely has played into this idea of looking after our own, the whole isolationism and going at our own type thing. But I don't think that we want to isolate our allies and others who have been good trading partners with us.
Well, the main thing that it is for him is that it kind of counteracts trade agreements such as NAFTA and TPP, which have shipped over 1 million jobs abroad to Mexico, where it's cheaper to produce. And it's not every aspect of what we trade and what we buy. It's construction products, such as it's mainly just steel, concrete, asphalt, wood, and sand, actually. And those will be bought from American companies, because that encourages and stimulates our economy, as well as creates more jobs and revenue for American companies. And Trump has said that. Trump said a lot of things, but means the opposite. He's a fake populist. He's not really remember, he would outflank Hillary in the 2016 election on things such as war and intervention in the Middle East. Like, he's like, we're getting out. And then he's trying to start war with Iran, and we're still bombing 8 different countries. Drone strikes have gone up 420% under the Trump presidency from the Obama administration, which also went up about 400% from the Bush administration. So that's a 10-fold increase.
Drone usage, you
said? Yeah, drone usage, as well as bombings. And do you know who Julian Assange is?
Julian Assange.
Assange, I can't remember specifically how to pronounce it. I believe he was the founder of WikiLeaks. Now there's a warrant out for Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, Julian Assange. They're all famous whistleblowers. Julian Assange, now, albeit there's personal accounts of him not being a good person personally. For example, I believe there might be a sexual assault case against him. But needless to say, he released a video on WikiLeaks of the U.S. bombing a drone target that ended up being majority civilians, and then when first responders came, did what's called a double tap and came back around and then killed the first responders. and he exposed us committing a war crime, and now there's a warrant out for his arrest.
Okay.
The U.S. really doesn't like people saying you did something wrong, like the whistleblower in the Trump impeachment inquiry.
Well, that's why we got to protect the whistleblowers. I mean, these are people that are dealing with things on a day-to-day basis. They're often, government officials that are careers are in whatever work they're doing, and so they have more validity than some of these other appointed officials. So, so anything we could do, even the whistleblower who's first came out with started the whole Trump impeachment, we need to protect these people.
Yeah.
They should get Time magazine cover.
Yeah. What I think is horrible is that people like Nunez, Representative Nunez, who is the Republican head on the House Intelligence Committee, and then Trump and all these other people are demanding that his name be him or her, that name be released purely because they want people to go and act violently against this whistleblower. And to me, that's fascism. That's the definition of a dictatorship.
Most definitely. I mean, I have no doubt that the House will eventually vote to impeach, but what's your stance on how do you see the Senate reacting?
He's not going to get removed, 100%. 99.9% not getting removed. 20 Republican senators would have to flip, and this is nothing like the Nixon inquiry, where elected officials actually cared more about the Constitution and justice other than their party. And there's an organization called Republicans for Rule of Law, and it's a Republican group that basically say, hey, let's put our party aside and put the Constitution and legality of the matter first. And they played clips of these Republican representatives during Nixon's impeachment inquiry and impeachment hearing, where they all said, I'm sorry, Mr. President, I know we're of the same party, but what you did was wrong, and I'm putting the Constitution first. That's just not going to happen in today's day and age. It's going to be the House will remove him. Well, not remove. The House will impeach him. And even that's like a 75% yes, impeach, 25% no, impeach. It's purely just because, we can get to the specifics later, but purely just because what we're going after him on the legality matter, because there's tons of other things that are way better to go after him on than the Ukraine call. Huh? Oh, sorry.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I think that's why Nancy Pelosi waited so long to pull the trigger on the impeachment hearings too. So,
I mean,
because it is more black and white, cut and dry.
Yeah. Well, I think they should have gone after him and it would have been easier. We're gonna have to take a break in a second so the computer can catch up and save this without losing anything. But real quick, I think what we should have gone after him on is the emoluments clause, which basically says you can't own any businesses that could allow you to
profit.
Yeah, profit. So he still owns his family owns his hotels in D.C. and the Saudi Arabian embassy funnels him $300,000 a year into his family to host these veteran getaways, and then he turns around and gives them a multi-billion-dollar weapons deal so they can wage a genocide in Yemen. And then that's the second thing is the War Powers Act. He's knowingly. What's the word I'm looking for? Allowing a genocide to take place in a country and providing the aggressor the means to do so, because they are giving him personal money for his family, and that gives you corruption. It gives you literal genocide. It gives you very, very, very strong grounds for impeachment, as well as completely tarnishing his reputation for all the swing voters. Because I feel like with the swing voters, it's going to be like, so what? Every politician asks for dirt on their political opponent. What's wrong with that? No one's going to care as much as he's allowing a genocide to take place because the country's giving him money. 62% of Trump voters said that they would support Trump no matter what he did, even hypothetically. So only that 62% would still support him, as opposed to all the people who are sane, who can see what he does wrong, flipping against him because of the morality of the matter, but that just hasn't been made public yet.
You know, I think that people have identified impeachable offenses for many years now, so it's just finally to go after even this one offense. My hope is just to get him out of office.
Yeah, that's what we're all hoping.
If it goes with the offenses that you discussed, or if it finally goes with this offense that they're going for with the Ukraine and trying to investigate the Bidens using a foreign government, it's just a point at where we need to just remove him and get this presidency behind us.
Yeah, move on as a country. So we're going to have to stop for a second so the computer can catch up with all we've recorded, but
Okay.
we will be back in a second. And we are back.
All right. Well, nice to be back.
So we kind of talked a lot about... I'm surprised how far we went into the drug crisis and different ideas like safe injection sites. I think that was really interesting. We also talked a lot about the impeachment inquiry, the 2020 nomination. We talked about Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders. Talked a little bit about the economy. So let's finish this up by talking about what you're going to be doing next. What's your next big thing as Jeremy Blake?
Oh, well, I think everything that we've talked about tonight, I think it's incumbent upon us to get more people involved. We need to make sure that people realize that they need to be engaged in the process. As much as we might make comments on Facebook or social media or other places, the biggest part about making change in our community is being involved. And if it's through the Democratic Party or through anywhere else, we just need more people to be actively engaged, and just wanting people to know that their voice is through their vote, and wanting to develop a relationship in community by having activists, having people involved, community organizers.
I couldn't agree with you more. So is there any specific, since you are still serving on Newark City Council, is there any specific bill or policy you're looking to implement soon?
I think that, you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. It's not a specific policy that we're going to get through City Council, but I think for 2020, the nonpartisan ballot initiative is something that I'm going to work on. Policy-wise, going through City Council, I think we do want to look at rental registration, which is to make sure that there's affordable quality housing for tenants within our city. Over half the housing stock in Newark is rentals, and so we want to make sure that people have quality housing. And then the third item would be bidding out our trash service, making sure that we have everyone has trash service and wanting to have recycling capabilities with that. So that'll be sort of a local level piece. But ultimately, just wanting to work with organizations like yours, and other groups, North Think Tank on Poverty, the Freedom School of Licking County, other grassroots groups, to get people aware that they need to be engaged. I mean, I think that ultimately is... Civic engagement has been lacking for a long time for numerous reasons, but I think we as local leaders, and people may not have a title, but you are a leader because people watch you through your actions, and we need to let people know that they need to be involved.
So I guess on top of that, clearly to pass those bills, we touched earlier on the elements of tribalism in a community and how people vote partisan as opposed to policy. Clearly, I think there's going to be a need for more Democrats in Newark, Ohio. So do you think it is possible that Newark, Ohio could turn blue? Or I don't know, like Newark could make a turn for the Democratic Party? Because right now it is, quite frankly, a solid red community.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in the past, Newark has been, we've had Democratic mayors, we've had Republican mayors, and so I don't necessarily want to say that Newark is a lost cause, because I think that we can have effective leadership that will benefit and have a shared value, a shared vision of wanting to make sure that all people are cared for by their city government. And so, we are in the minority right now. We are only going to have 3 Democrats on City Council. The remaining 7 are Republican. And the mayor's Republican right now. But we got to have hope. We got to have hope that there's going to be some change. I think as the Columbus region. And my ear must not be good for these.
It's the switch the earbuds around, so that one goes in the other ear.
Oh well, we're almost done anyway. But I think as the Columbus region grows, more people are going to be moving into the western part of Licking County, and then as people move into the western part of Licking County, which is the New Albany, Gahanna, Pataskala areas, that will affect Newark as well. So I think probably when you're ready to run for office, the demographics of Licking County will be much different. So hopefully you can get a state house seat when you're ready.
Well, my goal is to go to Oregon to go to college, and then might make a representative run for there, or might just start in city government. But honestly, a Senate run would be pretty cool, state senator. But
well, you have a bright future ahead of you, so whatever you do, I know you're going to be successful. So,
why, thank you, and you as well. And I look forward to working with you again on wherever you go next.
Well, time will tell for me, but I'm just going to be supportive of leaders such as yourself and other people, and we just need to encourage. Many times when someone is rising and they have success in the future, others like to talk bad or have issues to prevent them from achieving their goals. But we need to be uplifting for all those folks. So as much good as you do in our community, we want to be supportive of that. And I'm just glad to be on your program and to talk with Represent America.
All right. You plugged the name there at the end. All right. Look forward to talking with you again in the future.
All right. Thank you, Conor.
Jeremy Blake, everyone.